when you get to a certain level, you want to buy more businesses and get more properties as per such and get a more of an income, but you don't want to add more things to your plate. So there's sort of two options. You can buy businesses with teams, or we're talking about, people, like a lot of people coming to me and saying, "Hey, Jared, just buy me a business and run it for me." And that's kind of where we will head eventually. But where, like, I've still got teams running my businesses that I still want to get done as well. And then, like, next year, there's going to be bigger doors opening. But it's a big thing is that once you get past that survival stage, and that is like, I still think for me personally, that's my biggest achievement because it's hard. It's like,
Yeah.
I know that you never ended up working for somebody else, and I take my hat off to you. That's
Never had a
amazing.
full-time job, no.
Yeah. But most of us did. And it's like, it's hard. It's hard work. And I think I definitely wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't buy businesses, because I found it so hard in the startup phase. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you're a testament to that as well.
I mean, I love it all. I love the buying. As you can tell, I had a number of acquisitions. I love the selling. I sold that editing company for 100 grand. We haven't covered that story. And that money was huge. I bought my first property in Brisbane and a new car. I love starting companies that are based 100% on me, like my blogging business. And I love the partnerships like with Claire and inboxdone.com. But, we're talking about a 20-year career. All of that stuff can't happen at once. And there's certainly a progression that you go through. And yeah, it kind of sucks the most at the start. Let's be honest here. Until you get
Yeah.
survival money, you're working your ass off just to get the rent and the food and so on. And then you start to build a little bit of capital, a little bit of income that generates without you working. And then you suddenly have options. And in fact, when I started buying websites off Flippa, that was probably the first time I ever had a little extra money beyond what I needed, I guess. So I felt like, what's a way to invest this? And I remember I read Rich Dad Poor Dad around that time for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and everyone talks about this book for
Yeah.
investing. It's like how every property investor gets their start is by reading that book. And I think I had contemplated getting into a bit more property investing around that time, but it was also, this crazy Sydney, Melbourne prices skyrocketing. Brisbane was going nowhere. And I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't have a lot of money, so I can't really go crazy there. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't be getting into property investing in that world. I should do it in a space I understand with
Exactly.
much lower entry costs. I'm like, I can buy a website for, 10 grand, 12 grand, where the property would be 20 grand deposit and then a huge mortgage with a 25-year run rate. And I have no real control over changing that income either. And plus, I'm just not passionate about doing all the research and finding, good properties at that time anyway. I do that now actually here in Canada. But back then, I certainly was not into that. So to me, buying websites was like the smartest and obvious choice, at least for a number of years. And that's what led to buying those sites. The strange thing is though, fast forward 4 years later, my mindset changed and I'm like, I can't, even though I've outsourced as I guess the story continues, just to clarify here, when I bought these miniature motorcycle sites, the strategy there was to bring on a manager essentially. And I already had a person in my life who I knew would be perfect for it. It was a young guy. When I say young, I was probably 27, he was 23, so not that different, but he was eager to learn internet marketing. He already was exposed to that space. And I'm like, let's do a partnership. I trusted him. He'd actually been one of my guest writers on my blog.
Oh, great.
And yeah, so we had that connection, a bit of rapport, and I felt he was smart enough to do this. And I said, what we'll do is let's split the revenue from this collection of miniature motorcycle sites. So I immediately have my income, which, that's not necessarily great, but I was like, if he can pull off what I wanted to do. And I said to him, the plan here is, first of all, let's just make sure the site does what it's supposed to do, take over, introduce yourself in the forum community so that they know we're here as new owners and we're invested in this site, but we're not going to change anything too crazily, and make sure the revenue works. And then I said, well, after that phase, we're going to do a renovations phase, basically.